floor. You know, I was at a class when he was talking about the person, it was in Vrindavan, and he said the person who was cleaning the floor, which is, the floor is white and black marble, and the person bathing Krishna Balaram, which is also white and black marble. It's no difference. It's all absolute. It depends on the person doing it, where his consciousness is at. One can be cleaning the floor, thinking of Krishna. This is Krishna's temple. I have to make it really nice. And meditating. And Prabhupada even calls this samadhi, just thinking about Krishna. And then the person on the altar could be thinking of something else. So they're both absolute, but even in that case, the person who's doing the floor is making more advancement because he's thinking of Krishna. So we have to think in all of our activities that Krishna, Prabhupada says, actually Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, in all your activities and for the results, just depend upon me, work always under my protection, and in such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So we're not only supposed to do this service, but we're supposed to be conscious of Krishna while we're doing it. So even if we're not conscious of Krishna while we're doing it, we're still benefiting because the results are being offered to Krishna. We're cleaning Krishna's temple. It's Krishna's temple, it's Krishna's floor. Krishna appreciates it. And also we understand when we're cleaning Krishna's temple, we're cleaning our heart of all these dirty things that have been there for so many years. So this is the highest form of yoga, and to meditate on Krishna's personal form is the highest meditation one can possibly have. There's also the impersonal Brahman, where one can meditate on the impersonal Brahman. I'm not positive how you meditate on it, but how can you serve the impersonal Brahman? What can you do? Here's something, and what does it do? Disappear? It's like no service. But with Krishna, even as in the deity form, you can bathe him, you can dress him, you can feed him, you can decorate him, you can decorate his altar, you can clean his altar, you can do so many things. What do you do to worship? You just have an empty altar, worship Brahman? I don't know. The only thing I can think of is they basically meditate and they become more like one with Brahman in their meditation. So in one sense, they may be thinking they're becoming God. So we don't want to become God. We want to just be God's servant, his humble servant. And then when you actually become God's servant, you can become greater than God. You can become his parent. You can chastise him. You can become his friend and be equal with him, and tell him that we're not going to let you play with us anymore. I mean, the relationship one can have in the personal form is so much greater than, I mean, if you compare the impersonal, okay, everything you now love, your family, your friends, different devotees, so many people. If you're an impersonalist, all that is just Maya. It's all illusion. The higher thing is just the nothingness. That's not a very attractive feature. But when you learn that you can have a personal relationship with a personal God, and also a personal relationship with all his personal servants, eternally, full of knowledge and bliss, and a lot of fun. That is much more attractive than just giving it up. Even in your relationships you have now, if you have a wonderful relationship with someone, and just to think about how it's just all an illusion, that's not very attractive. We're not saying that of course your relationships in this material world aren't the highest thing, but it gives you a taste of what's best in this material world. Is a loving relationship is the most, the highest taste you can get in the material world. But, and that's a reflection of the spiritual world. The highest taste we can get is a personal relationship. But the difference is the person doesn't die, doesn't leave you. You always have a relationship eternally in the spiritual world. material world, the relationships end. And that's not very nice. It's a place of birth, disease, old age, and death. Abrahma bhuvanaloka puna avartino juna. Mamupeti to counter puna janmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery when repeated birth and death take place. So the material world is not a nice place, but we do have some experience that a personal relationship is the highest pleasure we can get in this material world. You just live by yourself and you take care of your nice little toys and things is not nearly as nice as if you have a personal relationship with someone. That's a much higher taste. So similarly, this material world, we can understand certain things about the spiritual world just from this material world. It's not that this material world is false, it's just temporary. It's there right now, but then it's going to be gone. It's temporary. But it's not like it's totally illusion. It is real, but temporary. So we know that the highest understanding we can possibly have, or the highest pleasure we can possibly have, is in a personal relationship. And this is Krishna's answer. Those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshiping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect, worshiping me. So Krishna clearly says that he who concentrates upon his personal form and who worships him with faith and devotion is to consider most perfect. This is nice. For in such Krishna consciousness, there is no material activity because everything is done for Krishna. Now, this is also a symptom of love. That when you love someone, you serve them, you do something for them. That's love. So a pure devotee is constantly engaged. Sometimes he chants. Sometimes you of course we chant about Krishna, but even in the mundane world, sometimes someone may, I don't know anybody that sings about their wife or husband, but maybe they did years ago. But we can chant about Krishna. We can chant his holy names. Because when we're chanting Krishna's holy names, Krishna is present. He's not different from his name. So we're associating with him personally. So therefore we chant his holy names because we want to be with Krishna. If you want to be with Krishna, it's not very difficult. All you have to do is chant his names. I'd like to go back to the spiritual world, but I don't really have to. If I chant his names sincerely, concentrating, I'm with Krishna. I don't have to go anywhere else. A pure devotee is constantly engaged. Sometimes he chants, sometimes he hears or reads books about Krishna. So he hears about Krishna. You can hear by just hearing, like you're hearing in class, or you can hear by reading. Reading is also hearing. So you can hear about Krishna. And when you do that, you're associating with Krishna. Sometimes he cooks prasadam. So he cooks, but he doesn't cook for himself. He's cooking to offer it to Krishna. Because Krishna is a person. He knows that, and he has to eat. So I have to feed him. Just like I talked previously about when Vasudeva dropped Krishna in the Jamuna, he was very anxious to get him. He didn't just think, well, he's God, he can swim, he can get out, it's not a problem, he'll save me if I have a problem. I don't have to save him. No, he's his son, he has to save him. So when we're taking care of the Krishna's deity, we have to cook for him because he has to eat. Can't go without eating. Even on fast days, Krishna eats. He doesn't have to eat, but we have to take care of him because he's a person. And we've taken on the responsibility to take care of him. So he sometimes cooks prasadam, or he goes to the marketplace to purchase something for Krishna. So Krishna has to eat, he has to get something for him. I heard this story long time ago where a devotee was sent out I think it was an eggplant, but I don't know for sure, but let's just say an eggplant. Prabhupada personally sent him to get an eggplant. And he came back. He said, Srila Prabhupada, I was in Maya. I couldn't think of Krishna. I just saw all these things. I thought of sense gratification, this and that. And then Prabhupada said, did you get the eggplant? And he said, yes, very good. So even if we're not thinking of Krishna, but if we're doing a service, it's still very good. We'll get purified, and that will help us to think of Krishna more. Purchase something for Krishna, or something he washes the temple or the dishes. So it's nice. We try to get more people to clean the temple. Of course, right now we're not doing any temple cleaning. We're not having any programs, but if you can volunteer to clean, if you don't already, it's a really good service to do for Krishna. Whatever he does not let a single moment pass without devoting his activities to Krishna. Such action is in full samadhi. Okay. So does anyone have any questions?
Me.
I heard a sound.
What is definition of samadhi?
One question at a time.
What is definition of samadhi? Means how do you define the full samadhi? What exactly does that mean?
Well, Prabhupada says samadhi means trance. So you're like in trance, just thinking of Krishna. That's samadhi. You have something you can add?
Full absorption.
Yeah, full absorption. Fully absorbed in Krishna. That's samadhi. So Prabhupada gives this whole list of things. And what Prabhupada did in his room, he explained, I go from here, I chant japa, then I read this, then I translate, then I take prasadam, from one activity to the next, it's all Krishna conscious. That's samadhi. No nonsense, no maya, no break from Krishna. That's samadhi.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Oh, you're most welcome, both of you. Any other questions? How about comments? Any comments?
Prabhu, one question. Can Radha Krishna be worshipped as parents?
I mean, anybody can do whatever they like. It's Krishna gives everybody, but in our tradition, we don't do that because the parents are the servants of the child. And we don't want Krishna to serve us, we want to serve him. So sometimes someone might worship Krishna as a child and give him toys and of course offer him food, bathe and dress him, take care of him, but not as parents. That's more of a Christian. The Christians have our Father who art in heaven. They see God as their Father. And what do? They ask for things. Give us our daily bread. Give us this, give us that. That's the position of the child asking the Father for things. So we don't want to worship Krishna in that way. We don't want to have Krishna serve us. There was, I think it was Sanatana Goswami in Vrindavan who just lived outside. They tried to get him to get a hut or a place where he can live inside, but he just said, what's the difference? And he just stayed anywhere, different trees. And he was in the sun. And Radharani came personally and covered him shielded him from the sun with a cloth, holding a cloth above him. And I don't know if it was Rupa Goswami, one of the Goswamis saw that Radharani was doing this and then informed Sanatana Goswami that Radharani is serving you because you don't have a place. And after that, he spoke with some people who wanted to do some service for him, and he asked them to build him a hut. And then he stayed in a hut so that he didn't accept service from Srimati Radharani. So we don't want to accept service from them. We want to serve them. So we don't worship them at all as parents. Does that answer your question?
Very nice answer, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Krishna says that he is an eternal father, he is the father of all the living entities. So whenever we read it, we feel like that he is everything for us. So our relationship might be even like he's my father. So he's taking care of everyone. So it might be that also, right, Prabhuji?
Yeah, he said, I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. So yes, God is our father. We're not denying that. There's just a higher relationship one can have with him than as our father. And that's the relationship we are trying to establish in our Gaudiya, Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. And we don't really want to see him in that light so much as seeing him more as our friend, our lover, our child. And see, right now in Krishna consciousness, to think of him like that, but you know, is nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, you don't worship the deities in that way. You can worship the deities as the Supreme Lord and Srimati Radharani as his pleasure, potency, but we don't worship them as our parents. I never heard
But
of
we
that.
can start with the relationship of master and servant, correct?
Yes, you can be a servant. Yes, you don't have to go any further than that. But that's different than worshiping deities as your parents. And even if you understanding Krishna is our father, he is our father. He's everything. And he does say that. But that's just one understanding. It's not the highest. Just like you can worship Lakshmi Narayan in Vaikuntha in awe and reverence, but you don't worship them as your children or as your friends. You know, that's only relationship with like that is with Krishna. And in order to do that, you have to be covered by Yoga Maya. You forget that this person is the Supreme Lord, or it doesn't even matter. Actually, a very interesting thing happened yesterday or today. Well, one thing is Hansa Duda, disciple of Prabhupada from early days, he passed away, and we were watching some videos. And one question someone asked him in the beginning of this movement, did you see Srila Prabhupada as coming from the spiritual world? He said, no. He said, we just loved him. He was just so attractive. So, and Jiva mentioned, it's like, that's how they see Krishna. They don't see Krishna as God. They don't care if he's God. In other words, when the devotees with Prabhupada in the beginning, they didn't care if he came from the spiritual world or he didn't. That doesn't matter. They just loved him. So that's the relationship one should have or should come to have with Krishna. Now, all of us are still contaminated, but as we progress in our spiritual life, we can get to see what our eternal relationship is with Krishna, not just imagine, but we actually get to realize what our relationship is with Krishna. For instance, I'm a gopi, I'm a parent, I'm a cowherd boy, whatever it may be, you can actually get to realize that your relationship. And Prabhupada says, when you do, then you follow in the footsteps of a person like that. For instance, if you're a gopi, you may follow in the footsteps of a gopi. If you feel you're a parent or mother of Krishna, you follow in the footsteps of Mother Jashoda. This is a very advanced platform. So it's not something we can just imagine or just think that I feel that. We can imagine it, but it doesn't mean it's it. But we'll come to a point where we know what our eternal relationship, our eternal rasa is. Krishna reveals it to us, and then we follow in the footsteps of such a person. And it's not going to be, we realize that Krishna is our father. Our eternal relationship with Krishna is one of the, the 5 relationships we can have. If we could be a servant, we can be a friend, we can be neutral also, neutral servant, a friend, a parent, or a lover. So we can have any one of those relationships with Krishna eternally. And that's the way we want to practice, not artificially. We shouldn't think we're gopis, and well, we might be gopis, but we shouldn't think and start acting as if I'm a gopi and we love Krishna. We have to worship Krishna. Prabhupada said now as if we're worshiping Lakshmi Narayan in awe and reverence. And then when we become advanced and we know what our relationship is with Krishna, then we can start acting on that relationship. But don't, most people who start acting on that relationship are what are called sahajiyas. Sahajiya means they take devotional service cheaply. They think they're more advanced than they actually are. They think it's just a simple thing. And they think that they love Krishna. And yet they're still attached to material things. If you love Krishna, you would not be attached to anything material. I mean, so if you have any attachment or attraction for this material world, anything in it, then you're not fully in love with Krishna. You don't have pure, perfect, unalloyed love. We still have, it's not that we can't have affection for something, but we don't, we have to see that it's just Krishna's only important thing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw his home, his wife, his children, everything as Krishna's. They all belong to Krishna. And so he would serve them in that way, that they were Krishna's. So he had to do his duty to take care of them. So I'm not quite there yet. Probably none of us are. So if you want to see Krishna as your father, that's okay. That's in the beginning. That's fine. But you would not worship deities in that way. But you can think of him. You can. We as devotees, we shouldn't ask for anything material from Krishna. I mean, that's the way we should be. But even if we want something material, better we go to Krishna than we try to get it like by worshiping anyone else. And then Krishna will, like he did with Dhruva Maharaj, he gave him this kingdom, but he also gave him a higher taste, gave him himself where he really didn't even care if he had this kingdom anymore. It was insignificant compared to what he achieved. He said, I was looking for broken pieces of glass and now I found a precious gem. So Krishna can't be compared to anything in this material world. But when we're not as advanced, we can pray. Even the Christians, that's not bad, praying to our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, your name is holy. I mean, this is all true. And their understanding of heaven is more equivalent to what we think of the spiritual world, although they do think of heaven where they enjoy. Heavenly planets is a place you enjoy, whereas in the spiritual world, it's a place you give enjoyment to Krishna, but you enjoy too. When you serve Krishna, when you please Krishna, you definitely enjoy.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
You're welcome. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
But when we worship the deities, Prabhuji, we worship in awe and reverence only, right? We
Can
don't.
you speak louder?
When we worship the deities, we worship in awe and reverence only, right? We don't worship the deity as our friend or our lover or something like that, correct?
Okay, yes, that's what Srila Prabhupada has taught us. But it's not that it can't, it has to stay there that way. We can advance. Like, for instance, if you're worshiping your deities at home, you could, and I don't want to say this because some people may become more of a sahaji and think they're at that platform, but you can have a more friendly relationship with the deities. You know, Krishna, if you get purified, you can see the deities. I mean, but as who they are in your relationship, like, who was it? Was it Sanatana Goswami who the deity? He couldn't do anything practically, and because he was so old, and he would just offer the deities just chapatis, and the deity, they asked him, "Can't you serve me something else?" He said, I'm old. This is all I can do. Just take the chapatis. He said, how about just put a little salt on the chapatis? And he says, just accept it the way it is, you know. So that you can have a relationship like that with your deities. It's not exactly awe and reverence, but that's also someone who is completely in samadhi for so many, many years. And they actually established this relationship with their deity. But Prabhupada, at least in the temples, for sure, we should worship the deities in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, which means in the mood of awe and reverence. That's why we dress them so opulently. Krishna, you don't have to dress so opulently. You just put on a dhoti, a flute. That's it. Maybe a shutter. I mean, he also wore some jewelry too, so you can put some jewelry on him. But real simple in Vrindavan. Then when he's in Dwarka, then he was more royally worshipped, but that's not as advanced as in Vrindavan.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, I just have a quick follow-up question. So if we, I mean, not we, like if I worship Radha Krishna deity in my house as parents, but don't ask for any material things, would I be committing an offense?
I don't think you would be committing an offense. It's just that you're not following the Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. You're not following, you know, the way Prabhupada is taught. I don't think it's an offense because they are like your mother and father. You can see that. But if you also, I mean, you can serve your mother and father too, especially when they get old, you can serve them. I don't think Radha and Krishna are going to get old. But I don't think there's any offense at all. But
Okay,
why would you want to worship them as parents? I'm just curious.
Yes, Prabhu, because I don't think I'm mentally in or like, you know, spiritually in that stage yet or anywhere close to like, you know, imagine Radha Krishna is in like in a romantic affair.
Well,
It doesn't bring me bhakti.
So you're saying because you don't feel so qualified, therefore you're seeing them as your parents? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Prabhu. I mean, what I'm saying is like, I mean, I can speak up because Krishna knows my heart. So what I'm saying, like when I see Radha Krishna is a romantic relationship, I don't like, you know, bhakti doesn't come, 100% bhakti doesn't come to my heart. But if I see them as my parents, as because I love my parents, I can see, and they are our parents. So I feel more bhakti towards. So, but I just want to make sure, like, you know, I don't want to go against our tradition.
Right, you don't, okay, so as far as any feelings of like the gopis and loving Krishna in that mood, you don't feel that, that doesn't help you at all. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, I don't think anyone should be feeling that way. I don't think any of us should be. That would be more of a sahajiya. It's artificial. But what's wrong with seeing him as God? That's even, your parents, it's a lot more familiar than if it was with awe and reverence, like the Supreme Lord and his consort, worshiping him in that mood. What's wrong with doing that?
Sorry, Prabhu, what I missed that.
What I'm saying is, instead of worshiping them as your parents, now worshiping them as your parents is kind of still a close relationship, somewhat familiar relationship. But if you worship them as the Supreme Lord and his consort, then it's not so familiar of a relationship. It's more awe and reverence. And that's what we have to get to. We have to start with the awe and reverence. You may be coming a little closer to being too familiar.
Yeah, I understood, Prabhu. When I say as my parents, I mean, I didn't mean like 100% like my parents. I mean like just so that I love my parents. So I think like, okay, they are Krishna's parents, so that I can bring some love towards Radha Krishna. And of course, I mean, my original identity is I am their servant. So, and hopefully, I don't know what my real identity is.
Right.
So, and whatever my real identity, he will disclose this to me.
Well, I'm happy you don't know your real identity, because if you did, I wouldn't believe it.
But we can worship them as our like initial guru and master, right? I mean, before we take initiation, we can worship them as our master, and mistress, right?
Yeah, well, if he's God, he's your master, yes.
He's your master, right? I mean, so you can always worship them as your master, whom
Right.
you love. You can still love your master, especially a kind and wonderful master.
Right, right. Yeah. I don't see in the beginning as it being harmful, but I'm not an expert, to worship them as your parents, if you're not just constantly asking them for things.
No, that's the main caveat. Like, I mean, as long as I don't ask for material things, because I also have a Gopal deity, but I also have a 5-year-old son, so I want to see, just to bring some love in it. I want to see Gopal as like, as my son. I mean, not really son, but those kind of a baby in home. Same way I want to see Radha Krishna as like, just my parents, just to bring some love in the service. But I just to make sure that like, I'm not committing any offense.
I don't think you're committing any offense. I don't think so. But we're trying to suggest something that might even be better, that's all. But if you don't feel anything for God and his consort, then maybe you're sticking with him as your parents.
Okay, bro. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Madhavakanta, you have a question?
Prabhu, you read my mind.
I'm a magician.
Different topic. So it's about.
I could have told you that. Yeah, go ahead. What's the difference?
So, so devotee performs services, one or many, in the temple, at home, and he become expert in certain services, and knowingly, unknowingly, he may like to do one service or two services, whatever those may be. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether we call it as an attachment. My question is attachment to service, maybe over a period of years, good?
Is attachment to service what?
Is attachment to service, is it okay, good?
Are you saying to a particular service, Madhavakanta?
Yeah. So, and again,
I think it's fine to
like,
get attached to your service, but you shouldn't be so attached that if Krishna wants you to do something else that you don't want to do it. You should be attached to service more than to a particular service. In other words, Krishna gives you something else. Now, how does Krishna give you? Your guru may tell you, your authority may tell you, You should just be really attached to serving Krishna in whatever way Krishna wants you to serve. That's bhakti. And you could be attached, but you should work, that you're really into whatever particular service you have to do. And you can be more attracted or attached to one particular service than another, but that shouldn't influence you in doing that service and neglecting the other one. You should do them all, whatever you have to do.
But Pyari, somebody could be like an artist and really be able to serve in that capacity better than in other aspects, correct?
Yeah, but doesn't mean that that's what they should be doing. Depends what the guru tells you to do. They will, most likely, if somebody is an excellent artist, they will be eventually doing art for Krishna. But sometimes, different, Krishna wants to do different things. Like, for instance, Sariputta. Sariputta was a genius. There may be a lot of geniuses, but he was a genius amongst the geniuses, mathematical genius. And if you met him, you can see he was like, even materially, he might be a little awkward, but he really was super smart. And when he went to the temple for the first few weeks, he was a pot washer. He didn't complain that, I'm like a lot smarter than everyone else here. He just washed pots. He was humble. So Krishna did this to him, maybe not even to make him humble. Maybe he was already humble, but to acknowledge to others that he's humble. Then when devotees found out of his, how smart he was and his credentials, then they gave him other service. So it doesn't matter what you can do. Of course, Krishna gives you this ability, and that it says that the guru, the spiritual master, knows your psychophysical nature, and he engages you in service accordingly. So you would think that if someone is a great artist, then that's what they should do. But they may be great at something else. Maybe they're great at making devotees, and that's more important. So I'm just saying, just because you're really good at something doesn't mean that's what you should be doing for Krishna. But you think it's better you follow your authorities. And ultimately, if you're supposed to be painting, then Krishna will have you paint. It's not like, because I can do this really good, this is what I have to be doing.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I don't remember your question.
No, my question was whether attachment to service is good or we should avoid.
Oh, yeah. It's just, you can't be too attached to any particular service. You have to
Do the needful.
What?
Do the needful.
Yes, exactly. Very simple, as Prabhupada put it, do the needful. Right.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Well, any other questions? We're doing pretty good so far. Still have 6 minutes left, or less than 6 minutes.
One quick question to you. So in this verse,
Can you talk louder or get near the microphone?
is it better now?
A little bit.
In this verse, there is this word that is used, transcendental faith. Can you talk a little bit about transcendental faith?
What's he saying? Transcendental what?
Faith.
Faith. F-A-T-E.
No, F-A-I-T-H. Faith.
Oh, faith. Okay.
Oh, I see. Me with great and transcendental faith. Well, I mean, you know what faith is, right? I have faith in something. I have faith that when I go to bed tonight, I'm going to get up in the morning, but that may not happen all the time. And transcendental is that which is beyond this material universe. That's transcendental. So transcendental faith is having faith in that which is beyond matter. That's what we really have to have faith in, because having faith in anything in this world is not 100% guaranteed. You know, we have faith in the US government, but the US government can collapse. You know, people have faith in so many things, and it may someday prove to be false or fallible. But if you have faith in the transcendence, that faith is perfect, because that is always going to be there and always going to be perfect. If we have faith in that which is beyond matter, then our consciousness can be on that and not on this material world.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
You're welcome. Any other questions? So I'll tell. Well, I'm going to tell you something from the Bhagavatam. Ambarish Maharaj, do we have a question? Okay, thought somebody had a question. Ambarish Maharaj was a great devotee. He was a king. He was actually, he was performing a fast for so many days. And it says when it's time to break your fast, it's actually an offense if you don't break your fast at the right time. He was performing this fast in Vrindavan. And when it was time for him to break his fast, now this was a king, so he's a Vaishnava, but he's not even a Brahmin, but he's better than a Brahmin, because a Vaishnava is better than a Brahmin. But when he was about to break his fast, the Varsha Muni came, and it also specifically says came uninvited. He just dropped in, and he expected to eat. So he said, "Would you like to, eat? We have everything here for you." And he said, "Yes." He's just going to go take bathe. But when he went to bathe, he also meditated on Brahman. He was an impersonalist, and while he was meditating on Brahman, the time was coming for Ambarish Maharaj to break his fast. And Ambarish consulted with the Brahmins as to what should I do? And the Brahmins couldn't think of what he should do. So he suggested, and he quoted from, I don't remember from where, but he quoted a verse where drinking water is considered breaking a fast and also considered not breaking a fast. So do you think I should just drink some water? And then the Brahmin said, yes, that's what you should do. But he's the one that actually came up with the idea. The Brahmins couldn't figure that out. So he drank some water on the advice of the Brahmins. After it was just his suggestion, though, because they couldn't think of anything. But the Varsha Muni, because he was in this meditation, he could understand that Ambarish Maharaj broke the fast. He considered it eating, even though it's considered eating and considered not eating. So he considered it eating. And then after he came back, he was really angry. Now he's just meditating on Brahman, but he get really, really angry. And he took out a lump of his hair and threw it down and created this big fiery monster who was going after Ambarish Maharaj. Now, most of us would probably run. Ambarish didn't move at all, was completely calm and peaceful, accepting everything as Krishna's mercy. And then Sudarshan Chakra came. And I was trying to find this, I couldn't find it but in the purport it says something like, Krishna left his Sudarshan Chakra with Ambarish Maharaj. for protection, because Krishna knew that this was going to happen with Devarsa Muni. So he already had his chakra there. And his chakra immediately destroyed this big created fiery monster that Devarsa Muni created, and then started chasing after Devarsa Muni himself. And the point I just wanted to get to was how one is meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is getting all protection from his, even from his personal chakra, Lord's personal chakra, the Sudarshan chakra. And the others just finished meditating on the impersonal and just becomes angry because somebody drank some water before I ate, and pretty puffed up. So, I mean, if you look at the caliber of the devotees, and Devarsa Muni is extremely famous, you know, and yet he's also seems to be a little bit uncontrolled and angry. So worshiping which one is better? You know, it's pretty obvious from looking at the worshipers themselves. I just wanted to add that little story. Hare Krishna. I think it's time to end.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All right, to Srila
Panchakalpatarubhyascha
Prabhupada.
kipasindhya
Panchakalpa-tarubhyascha, kripa sindhubhyo, patitana pavanebhyo,